everyone, and welcome back to another episode of RC Podcast. So, before I get into who my guest is today, we had a very interesting way of how we started this podcast where my guest, who wanted to be on this podcast, thought that we'd record this in person, just showing that he is not a true friend and is just using me for my platform. He did not realize at all we record over Zoom, so he came to my house. I had to send him away back to his place. So without further ado, welcome Donald Lao.
Hello. Okay, my defense, it was not very clear. But yes, I totally should have just asked. It would have been such an easy misunderstanding to get rid of. But here we are.
Or you could have just watched one of my podcasts.
That's true.
You could have done that.
Could have also done that.
Anyway, so a little bit of backstory with me and Donald. Donald and I met in first year through mutual friends.
Mm-hmm.
So we both attend University of British Columbia, but we are in different faculties. Donald, tell us about yourself and what you're studying.
So I actually met Ryan through Colin, our mutual friend who's in kinesiology with me. But Ryan and Colin know each other through high school. So it was a really good, fun time meeting the both of them. They're really cool. And yeah.
You know, what's funny, Colin comes up in a lot of podcasts. His name gets mentioned a lot, but he's never come on to the podcast.
Colin would be a good guest to have. He has some very interesting views on a lot of things.
I think that's why he's not wanting to come on the podcast.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
But yeah, tell us a little bit more about what you're studying and maybe just what some of your goals are with your studies.
Yeah, so I'm majoring in kinesiology, but I'm also minoring in sociology. And so basically, kinesiology is the study of the human body and a lot of ties to athletics and how that really affects maybe even the world. And then my minor in sociology is basically just because I'm very interested in how the world works, how our society works, and what functions really well and what doesn't function very well. And I guess studying sociology really makes you open your eyes to all the bad that goes on in this world and everything that can be fixed. So I guess it's a little pessimistic, but I think it's really important to learn about these things so that you know about them and you can help change the world for the better.
Yeah. Nice, man. Now, before we get into one of those subjects with sociology, which is going to be really interesting, I'm looking forward to it. We're going to start off a little bit softer, and we're going to talk about the outdoors. Now, anyone who knows Donald knows that he is super outdoorsy. You will not see him without wearing any Arc'teryx or any Patagonia gear, and he is just one of the most outdoorsy type of people I know. So, Donald, tell us a little bit about that, why you got into it, why you love it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, please sponsor me, Patagonia. Thanks. So yeah, it actually started from when I was in the cadet program when I was 13, and it all started with being introduced to camping, and I was like, this is actually really fun. It's something I really enjoy. You get to explore a lot of the world you normally can't get to in a day because you're able to camp outside and just sleep and the next day keep going further. And I don't know, I just never in my life before that really seen mountaintops or glacier lakes or any of that crazy stuff. So the more trips I went on with cadets, I ended up going mountain biking, skiing, going to the Rocky Mountains to try rock climbing. The more I got into, the more I just ended up loving it. And I think around when I was 16 or 17, I was just you know what? I think I can try and do this myself without the cadet program having to take me. So I had one friend whose dad was very knowledgeable in rock climbing and hiking and just outdoors survival in general. And he was willing to take me. So I ended up buying a bunch of stuff when I was around 16, 17, using up all of my money that I had earned up to that point to try and get into outdoorsy stuff. I bought hiking boots, I bought rock climbing equipment, and yeah, I still slowly started learning from my friend's dad. And before I knew it, I was I love this a lot, and just kept going and going and going.
Yeah, nice, man. I mean, I relate to you so much. I love being outdoors. I mean, I definitely don't have the expertise you do as much. So Donald and I went camping a few weeks ago, and most of our survival gear was given to us by Donald. If it wasn't for Donald, we
And
would
your
not have.
dad. Your
And my
dad had a
dad.
lot.
That's true. My dad gave us a GPS that we didn't really use at all. But if it wasn't for Donald, we wouldn't have had clean water using a gravity filter. We wouldn't have had the knowledge. I was about to drink from a river, and Donald told me not to drink straight from the river, just because of bacteria. So Donald was super helpful there. I mean, Donald, do you want to tell them about the story about the little lake experience we had with leaving a couple
Oh
beers up
man.
there?
Oh man, this is so like it's such a horrible experience in the moment, but like afterwards, it's a pretty good
It's a
story.
funny
So
story.
we get to our camp spot, which is like probably 3 kilometers away from the actual lake, and so we set up our tent and everything, and we leave all our bags there, and we're like, let's go have dinner at the lake because it's beautiful, it's higher up, and we'll just bring everything we need. So that's what we decide to do. We leave our campsite around like 5. We hike up to the lake. We get up to the lake, and we're sitting there or around the lake, and we're like, I think Ryan, was it you? I think
Was it me? Yeah,
Ryan.
yeah.
Ryan was like, let's chill out. Let's chill our drinks in the lake. It'll be a great idea. And myself and our friend Eric was like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. So we dunk our drinks in the lake and we start cooking our dinner. Lo and behold, like we start eating and we just start talking. We end up after eating, you get like a little lethargic. We like took a nap on the rocks and took a nap on our hammock, which Ryan left a small stain on for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay, well, yeah, I might have left a stain, but at least, or not at least, but I didn't have any pants. Okay, I only had shorts. It was like 6 p.m. when we headed up to the lake. So I asked Donald, hey, you think I should bring any pants? Because we were wearing shorts. You think I should bring any pants, keep warm? He's like, no. I get up there and he pulls out a pair of pants. I'm like, you told me not to bring pants. He's like, no, I didn't. I'm like, yeah, you did. So I was
did.
cold, getting eaten alive by bugs. So yeah, I took the hammock just to wrap myself in a nice little cocoon. And then, yeah, maybe I left a little stain. It was a lovely stain, though.
Yeah, so that happened. And then we finished our naps. We're like, oh, that was great. Let's clean up and go. So we all clean up and we start heading back down to our campsite. And like 2 kilometers down, we're like only probably 1 kilometer away from our campsite. We're like, guys, wait. We forgot our beers. And now it's like 9 p.m. Okay. So it's dark. And we're like, oh crap, we cannot leave them there overnight because there's like fish in the lake. Mm-hmm. There's a multitude of things that could like break those cans, or what if they floated into the middle of the lake? Like we were going to hike back up the next morning to go see it one more time. But we were like, we cannot leave them there overnight. Like just as like a good rule of what I follow is called leave no trace camping, or leave no trace like outdoors. It's just whatever garbage you do, you pick it back up. The only thing you leave is footprints. That's it. So it's a rule I follow. And I was like, I cannot let myself morally leave these beers in the lake overnight. So of course, Ryan and Eric and I were like, agreed, let's all go back up there and try to like quickly run up there and just grab them and come back down. And we'll just enjoy the beers back at our campsite in our tent. And the problem is that our friend Eric started hurting. His knees started hurting, I think it was.
Yeah, he did something to his knees while hiking. Yeah, back down, I think. Yeah.
Man, yeah. So then he was like, guys, I don't think I can go back up. Like, because from the campsite to the lake was the most elevation gain. So he was really hurting. He's like, I might have to stay here. So Ryan and I were like, okay, we'll go up and grab them. We'll leave all our bags so we can go faster. So that's all we did. I just brought my phone for like the map. And we left everything with Eric, and he just waited for us on the trail. And Ryan and I basically just grabbed our headlamps and flashlights and ran up in the dark to grab them. And it was literally a horrible experience because we had to probably hike like 4 kilometers in like 40 minutes. We did it pretty fast.
There and back. Yeah, it was about 40 minutes. I mean, it was also just after an entire day of hiking with bags on our backs too, almost all incline, right? So, and it was nighttime. So we were just both like, our internal clocks were tired, our legs were tired, and it was getting really cold out. And once again, I only had shorts. So we are just miserable. I remember, Donald, you were just like swearing so much. You're screaming because there was no one around. Like, it was that late at night where there was no one else on the trail. Everyone else was back at the campsite.
Yeah.
So it was just us. It was also kind of scary. I felt bad, honestly, for Eric, because
Yeah.
at least I had you there
Mhm.
with me, but Eric was just alone with the bags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like, it probably wasn't the smartest thing to leave Eric by himself.
Yeah. We did give him the bear spray though, but that means we didn't have bear spray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's okay. We're all good now.
Yeah. We got the beers. We hiked back down with them. We enjoyed them at our campsite while staring at the stars. Oh, stars were beautiful that night.
So beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely one of my favorite things about going outdoors, just away from the city and from towns and everything, is just being away from all light pollution and looking up at the stars. Like, as a physics
yeah.
major who loves astronomy, it's like, mwah.
It's
Beautiful.
the best thing ever.
It is.
The amount of stars we saw there too, like,
Yeah.
I was surprised. We got to see we saw the ISS too, the International Space Station.
We did. We saw multiple shooting stars. I mean, that's the cool
So
thing,
many.
especially being out there in the bush. If you look up at the sky for 5 minutes, it's almost guaranteed you'll see a shooting star. Just don't look away. And that's one of the coolest things. Right?
So beautiful. It's like, you can't explain it. You can't. It's just like, when you're in the city and you see like a few stars and you're like, oh, cool, I can see like Ursa Major.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go out there and you're like, whoa, there's way more stars than I thought.
You can just barely see like the Milky Way too. You can just kind of see how there's a lot of stars basically in this one little strip in the sky, and it's so beautiful. And then also what I like about that is, with the amount of stars there, if you look at the horizon or at the mountains and the stars and the mountains together, you can kind of see the stars moving. So you can almost see the entire skyline just moving, right? And that's so cool to me. I'm just like, wow, it's beautiful.
Yeah, totally. Even like on that topic, like I went to Stargaze to see the Perseid meteor shower that was recently at night, and I actually got to see SpaceX's Starlink satellites.
Really?
Yeah, it was just really cool because I was like, what is that? And it's like literally like I think I counted like 16, 17, or 18, literally just satellite lights just like flying across the sky, like one right after the other. And I was just like, alien invasion is happening. We're done. And then I Googled it afterwards and I'm like,
oh, so you didn't know it was SpaceX before that?
I didn't. But afterwards I knew, and I figured it out, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I'm really glad I got to see that.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Where'd you go and see that? Where were you starting?
Yeah, I went with a couple friends to Bunsen Lake at 2 a.m. because that's when Google said that you could see the best like meteor showers. So, you know, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It's cool. I mean, I, for one, definitely feel really grateful living in Vancouver, and because I feel like it's one of the best places to be if you're really into the outdoors, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. We have so many things around us, like year round there's like outdoor activity, just because we have like Whistler, we have Squamish, and then we have the 3 northern mountains here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just beautiful. Like, we did our hike on the island, Landslide Lake. If anyone is interested, it's one of the most beautiful hikes I've been on. It's great. But yeah, we have Vancouver Island where we can just take the ferry over and go on hikes there. We have Squamish, we have Whistler Garibaldi Park, which is beautiful and everything. And then we have some smaller things like Lynn Canyon is just a beautiful little day thing to do if you want, like, just go swimming. And then just the amount of other outdoor activities you can do other than hiking. Like, for you and Eric, after the hike inspired me to get a bike, and now I'm getting into road biking. And I gotta be honest, Vancouver is a great city to get into road biking, because I've been able to I've only gone on like a few rides, but each ride I can choose a different path and get different views, and it's beautiful. It's great. And I mean, yeah, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I feel like especially Vancouver is very nice with their bike lanes. We have quite a few throughout the city, and it's just really nice. You can get anywhere with your bike if you have the energy to.
Yeah. I mean, I've been enjoying biking a lot lately. Like
Mhm.
the cardio has been great. My shins don't hurt anymore because I
Yeah.
always got shin splints when running, and it's just great because I can go farther, so I
Mhm.
can get a more of a view. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's great.
cycling is definitely like it's a really low impact sport for your body. So it's
Mhm.
very, very nice to like if you that's what you want to do for exercise, it won't hurt you in the long run as long as your bike fits you.
Yeah. And then you can also record everything on Strava. I mean, why don't you tell us a little bit about Strava? Because I just got it. I still am a little confused by it, but go.
So basically, Strava is like a recording app. Like it uses your phone's GPS to record where you've biked, and every like cyclist for some reason just decides to use Strava, and basically it just records your ride, and then you can compare where you've ridden with your friends, and then see who went faster, who went slower. And it's a free app, so everyone should get it. But it's really fun. It's basically like social media for cardio exercise. It's really funny.
hmm I remember first getting the app and seeing every single activity I can record. You can do all kinds of things. You can do skiing, you can do kayaking. I think paddleboarding's even an option there.
Hmm.
Horseback riding. They've got like everything. I mean, they have the
Yeah.
three majors, which is biking, running, and swimming. But then they have all these other options, and it's just crazy. And it's been great for recording all my rides as well, because it's
Mhm.
not just for social media. It's like also a great way to see my
Yeah, it's
average
a fitness
speed.
app. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a fitness app. You can see your improvements on it and then like do like training and make yourself better, right? Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've been enjoying it so far, and I think it's like you said, a great way to motivate oneself to exercise
Yeah,
and
totally.
everything. Yeah, that's super cool. So, how about now we segue into your little soci project that you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Yeah, just tell me a little bit more about it.
So yeah, basically, I really want to get your opinion and maybe bring some awareness to drugs in our society, especially in Vancouver. Um, so to start things off, I guess, like I want to get Ryan, I want to get your opinion on what you think of like the downtown east side, what you know about it,
Mm-hmm.
some of the bigger problems or like the
Yeah,
stuff that you hear in media. I think I want to bring more awareness to it, as well as like if anyone is listening to this, like maybe learn something about
yeah.
drugs and society and addiction. I think this will be quite interesting.
All right. So my opinion. I mean, I'll share what I know and what I've heard of the downtown east
Okay.
side,
Yep.
right?
Let's hear it.
Like just big homeless population,
Okay.
issues with a lot of overdosing there as well. I mean, I've bussed through the downtown east side. It's not the cleanest
Hmm.
area in Vancouver. I
Hmm.
see a lot of homeless communities where you will just look at parks and there's a bunch of tents set up as well. And you
Hmm.
know, like as a kid growing up in Vancouver, you're always told not to walk by yourself around the
Yep.
downtown east side, right? Like anytime I was there, I always made sure I stayed on the bus till I got from point A to point B, right? So
Yep.
that's kind of, yeah, that's my basic knowledge of it,
Hmm.
really. Yeah.
Yeah. So, for those that don't know, Vancouver downtown east side has quite a negative connotation, I would say, in mainstream media, and that has a lot to do with like cultural ideals and, of course, like um, knowledge, not or it's like just not being extremely like educated about that population there, the people there. So, like, what do you think? What do you know about drugs? Do you think like addiction is really bad or anything like that? Do you know anything about it?
Yeah. I've actually looked a lot at um, potential laws, specifically
Mm-hmm.
based around drugs and drug
Mm-hmm.
addiction a lot. Like for me, I've been looking a lot at how criminalization of a lot of these drugs can lead to not only negative connotations, but can also lead to people not wanting to get treatment or if they're overdosing, not want to call 911 out of fear of going to jail and not going to the hospital. So for me, one of the biggest things, like laws that I've always looked at, is decriminalization of small amounts of opioids. So,
Mhm.
I mean, why I like this is it doesn't harm people who are the buyers, right? That way, if
Mhm.
they overdose and are affected by the
Mhm.
drugs and need attention, they can
Mhm.
call 911, they can get an ambulance, and they don't have to fear being sent to jail, right? So if you
Mhm.
decriminalize small possession, then all you're really looking at is the dealers, and the dealers are one of the bigger issues who are spreading a lot of these drugs around.
Yeah.
And then also another thing I've also looked at is safe injection sites, right?
Mhm.
So it's like a way you can slowly help get people off drugs, but also give them a safe space where, because they're going to do it anyways, right?
Mhm.
So give them a safe space where they can have medical attention come right away,
Mhm.
and it just, brings down fatalities.
Yeah, so I really like, you actually know quite a lot. I'm very happy about that. So yeah, you brought up decriminalization. So
Mhm.
what that means is that instead of looking at, like in the drug context of in society, instead of looking at drugs as like a criminal act or just using drugs as a criminal act, you look at it in a different perspective, um, in that you only give like a fine or a warning instead of actually criminalizing it and putting someone in jail and arresting them for just using drugs, when really like not all of them are just using it out of like um, a bad place or a choice. Addiction, there's a huge genetic component to addiction, but some people are just trying to get rid of their withdrawal symptoms so they can function. And if the only way they have access to that drug is through like illegal manners, then they don't really have a choice, right? And I'm really glad you brought up safe injection sites as well. So Vancouver has its own safe injection site called Insite, INSITE. And basically what a safe injection site is that it's just a safe area for people to do drugs. And they have nurses and medical staff, as well as like mental health professionals, social workers, to provide treatment in case of an overdose, or to help them like get through whatever they're feeling, because there's a huge like mental component to drugs as well. So Insight was actually the very first supervised injection site in North America. They had to fight very, very, very hard to get it approved. And my professor in one of my classes was actually one of the founders of Insight. So
Nice.
I hope he's listening to this, and he's enjoying this talk, and hopefully we're bringing more awareness to Insight.
Bring me more viewers
Um,
for my podcast.
so yeah, I also want to talk about like what Insight is like it's really trying to adopt this theory of harm reduction. So what this model follows is that like there's a thought process that like drugs and addiction should be like a public health issue instead of like a police or court or
Mhm.
law criminal issue. It should it like harm reduction basically allows people to manage their like behaviors that are normally negatively looked down upon in a better, safer manner. And I don't know if you do you know there's like there was a lot of backlash for this. Do you know why someone might be afraid of like safe injection sites or anything like that?
I mean, it's probably got to do the same mentality around um national um sorry, shoot. I'm gonna actually have to cut this out because I forgot what the word is. Oh, okay. It's probably got to do the same with like national census, right? Where, I mean, I've heard this in the States a lot, where a lot of immigrants don't want to you do the census because they're afraid that the government's just going to use that to deport them, right? So I'm betting it's probably got to do the same mentality where people don't want to go to these safe injection sites because they're afraid that they're going to be caught here by the law and then taken to prison anyway. So I'm going to guess it's probably around the same mentality.
Well, I think like in yes, but
Mhm.
I think like for now, like there's also bringing it back. Like there's another law that was created that actually allowed people, if your friend was overdosing, which
Mm-hmm.
helped save a lot of lives. If your friend was overdosing and you had drugs on you, back then, a lot of people would be afraid to call for help because they were afraid of being arrested, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a new law was created where if you're calling 911 to save someone from overdose, you cannot get arrested for drugs in your possession.
That's good.
And so what would happen now is like only the ambulance will show up. If you call 911 for an overdose, police will no longer show up. And so that has saved a lot of lives because people are no longer afraid to call 911 when their friend is
Mm-hmm.
dying on the street
Yeah.
because they're taking some drugs. But bringing it back once again, so why people might be afraid of safe injection sites is a really big topic. And it's because many people believe that it centralizes like crime and like drugs in one area because of it you're legally allowed to inject heroin or take drugs there.
Mm-hmm.
So people think that it will bring drug activity up in the area around the safe injection site. And a lot of people also believe it allows people to like use more drugs. Like people will, because it's like legal, right? Then people
Yeah.
can do more drugs, and people will just start doing way more drugs because it's there. And that's actually not true. There's a lot of research that has been put into this, Inside especially because it was the first in North America. There's tons and tons of research about it. So it doesn't actually centralize the drug activity in the area because people were doing drugs in that area already, especially in the Vancouver Downtown Eastside. So what happens is that research has found that drug activity has neither increased nor decreased, okay? So that hasn't changed. So it's a good thing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I know that doesn't sound like a good thing, but that is a good thing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And people that think that it centralizes crime in the area is also like not true, because that Insight like we found that like Insight encourages drug users to seek counseling and treatment, okay? And that changes its public image to be a little bit more positive. And it was like also found that Insight actually cuts down on like shooting up in the streets and in the surrounding neighborhood, and it doesn't increase petty crime, which
That's
is
good.
really good. And you're removing all these like needles from the streets and everything like that. So that's also a really good thing. And then, so what Insight actually does really well is it actually saves lives.
Yeah.
So people don't actually like overdose as much because they have people watching over them, which is really, really, really good. And a really big point on Insight being helpful is like actually reducing the strain on hospitals, because when people overdose, before they would just like shoot up on the street or whatever, and if they're overdosing, they would get taken to the hospital, and it would actually take like if they're too late or they're dying, it would cost a lot of money and space in the hospital to house these people to help them get better after their overdose. So that put a lot of strain on the hospital. So what Insight does, it takes people away from the hospital and makes sure they're safe before the fact of an overdose. So if they do overdose right away, they're saved right there. And like the numbers really do speak for themselves. In the time that Insight's been here, there's been around 2,500 overdoses and 0 deaths in there. So it's a really, really, really good sign.
I think that's so awesome, especially in a city like Vancouver, where we do have a real issue with overdosing, especially with fentanyl. Like we have a huge issue with fentanyl here. So I think that's great. I love how you bring out the data, because really, like, I understand sentiment I understand why people have sentiment towards these programs, and like how they don't like the idea of people being able to basically not in a sense safely inject themselves, but are able to do drugs in these locations. I understand why people have that sentiment, right? If you just look at it.
Totally.
But then if you look at the data and see all these pros that come about it, it's really awesome, and they really do work for the community. And I think that's just so awesome.
Mm-hmm. And like, I think it's really important to recognize that, you know, drugs shouldn't like substance use and and drug use shouldn't really be like a criminal matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's a complex health issue, and it's tied into a lot of like social and economic and maybe like even like public safety,
Yeah.
all impact like, and it's like all fundamental to developing the proper comprehensive and like effective measures to tackle these problems. So by only looking at it in like a criminal manner, like everyone that uses drugs should just be thrown in jail,
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to solve anything.
Yeah.
Like Insight has like helped change the like especially police culture here, helped change the ideas around drugs, and um, really helped bring like a harm reduction model and a decriminalization model from other places that have successfully done it to North America. And although we are making some leeway, there are quite a lot
Mm-hmm.
of safe injection sites being opened up now in Canada. It is still quite a much bigger problem in the United States, where
Yeah.
there's quite a few more people that are heavily against safe injection sites, even though there is like huge body of evidence
Yeah.
suggesting that harm reduction and decriminalization and safe injection sites work.
Yeah. I think why there's probably a lot of sentiment there, like that, why people are so against safe injection sites and so against the use of drugs is just how things are worded. It's always been the war on drugs. It's always been drugs are bad and
Mm-hmm.
everything, right? So that you get these negative connotations. And yeah, drugs aren't healthy for you, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it takes away from what a lot of people are feeling. And I think a lot of people correlate drug dealing with drug use. They're
Mm-hmm.
very different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Drug dealing is a very big problem. And honestly, the fact that people are against safe injection sites and other things like this probably takes away from the issue of drug dealing.
Yeah, totally. And like, um, I think people don't realize how much like as much as we need to talk to the people that are actually in that position in order to help them out.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's not as easy as just like, oh, this is the one solution to this. No, there's just so much that needs to be looked at from a societal level to try and help this neighborhood out, which is like it's going to take some big policy
Mm-hmm.
changes
Yeah.
just to change the public opinion around different ways to tackle addiction, because I'd say safe injection sites are still relatively new. Um, so of course there's going to be like old cultural ideals that are just like, you know what, I've known drugs to be bad my whole life, and I just don't think that there's like
Mm-hmm.
anyone that should be using them at all. And like, and I totally understand that. I
Yeah.
get where they're coming from. It's just that by treating them drugs like in this manner, it's the problem's never going to go away, and we've known that for a while now. So trying these new things and it's actually helping is quite nice.
So I kind of just want to backtrack on something I said because I think it was too much of a blanket statement where I
Mm-hmm.
said, yeah, drugs are bad for you in the
Mm-hmm.
sense like, well, there's most drugs are bad for you. I mean, but there's been cases and studies shown for stuff like medical marijuana. And once again, marijuana is legal here in Vancouver, which I think it should be just because there doesn't, the studies haven't shown it should be
Mm-hmm.
illegal, not illegalized. Is that a word? Illegalized? Whatever.
Maybe
We'll use that word.
criminalized.
Criminalization and legalization is different,
Yeah.
and that's also probably something we can clarify too when we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about decriminalizing like small amounts of opioids. That's not saying like it's legal to get them. That's just
Mm-hmm.
saying you can't go to jail
Mm-hmm.
for it,
Yeah.
right? So difference
Yeah.
between legalization and criminalization. But yeah,
Yeah.
like there's a lot of drugs that are used by physicians in the appropriate way, but on the streets they're used in big doses, which can lead to a lot of harm, a lot of overdose. So I just wanted to kind of clarify
Mm-hmm.
something I said
Totally.
previously.
Yeah. And like, I think another problem with like part of the problem with the amount of overdoses we have in Vancouver is because of the introduction of fentanyl and
Hmm.
carfentanil into a lot of drugs these days to make them stronger, which is, if for those that don't know, an elephant tranquilizer. And obviously, humans are a little bit smaller than elephants,
Are
just
you
a
sure about
tiny bit.
that?
Yeah, just a little
Just a
bit.
little
So
bit.
it's quite strong on humans.
Hmm. So why do you, I don't know like what your opinion is or if this was mentioned in your course at
Mhm.
all, but why is like fentanyl such a huge thing in Vancouver and not so much other places? Like I'm sure it's an issue in other places, but it seems like for our city, it's a really big issue, bigger than it is at other cities.
I'm actually not sure about that.
Hmm.
Uh, we didn't really discuss it that in our class, but I don't know. I would just assume that maybe it got like they introduced it into Vancouver and people just got addicted to it. So
Hmm.
they're like, okay, let's keep going here. And if they have a market for it, I assume they just keep making it. And then I'm sure like as soon as people got used to the fentanyl here, they're like, okay, we need to make it even stronger. They decided
Hmm.
to go with carfentanil, which is like, I believe it's 10 times stronger than fentanyl.
That's
So it's
nuts.
even like scarier because even the smallest, like little bit too much can kill you.
Yeah, that's nuts. And I've seen on the news how it gets laced with other drugs as well.
Mhm.
And I mean, that leads to
Yeah.
so many of the overdoses we see.
Exactly. And like when you're just trying to escape your withdrawal symptoms
Hmm.
because you're just trying to live a normal life and that's the only one kind of drug you can access and it kills you, there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
Oh, I also want to clarify that like at safe injection sites they don't provide you with the
With the
drugs,
drugs.
okay? Yeah.
You have to
You
bring your
just
own, guys. You have to
you
bring your
do have
own.
to bring your own, but they
Man,
will give you
darn
clean
it.
needles and everything. So,
All right. Yeah.
yeah.
Dude, your soci course sounds so interesting. I mean, I took a soci course this summer too, but
Mhm.
I think what I like about yours is, I mean, and this the science major in me, is it has a lot of data,
Mhm.
right? And for me, I took a soci course on citizenship and identity. I really enjoyed a lot of the topics. But for me, like especially with my final essay, like I couldn't bring in any of my own data to talk about my points at all. It was all you have to use the readings that we've given you, which is all
Uh,
very opinion based. And for me, it's like with the mindset I have, it's like I love bringing in data and using that for an argument. One of the reasons I like sciences so much. And I
mhm.
like how this soci course, like you look at the data for safe injection sites and you
Mhm.
base your opinion partially off that data, which is I think is great.
Totally, yeah. And like with a problem as big as like a drug epidemic, it's just you kind of you kind of need to use science to prove the facts to people that are like just rooted in like
Mhm.
old cultural ideals. And if you can maybe prove to them that it just is working, it's better, then maybe they'll believe you more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how have you felt being like, I mean, you're not in the faculty of science, you're in faculty of kinesiology, but
Mhm.
it's basically science in a
Mhm. Yeah.
sense. How have
Yeah.
you felt minoring in an arts major along with your science major or having a minor in arts and majoring in something like kinesiologist?
Actually, kinesiology has quite a few little sociology courses that are mandatory for you to take
Oh,
regardless.
nice.
So it's quite like an multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary major. But I think it was really interesting to see the different kinds of teaching styles, I guess,
Hmm.
um, because yeah, I think arts classes are very much more like there's a lot of discussion and like there's many differing opinions that definitely need to be taken into consideration. There's a lot more writing, like papers and such, than there is in sciences. Um, but in kinesiology, a lot of it's like, okay, here are the facts. Here's how this works. This is proven. This is how it's going. But
Hmm.
especially for something like sociology, we don't have all the answers. We don't. So there's a lot of like opinions and like, oh, I think this works. This
Hmm.
looks like it's working. Um, So I think it's quite different in that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, I've looked at it. I mean, there seems to, in my sociology course, there's a lot of analysis of humans themselves and how they act and trying to figure out why they act that way, which I thought was really interesting. By the same, and I'm not trying to trash on the arts at all. It's just my mindset personally is I always just like data, right? So
Yeah.
that's how my brain works. So it was a big hill for me to overcome, but I'm really happy I did do it. Take the sociology course, and I think what's important is, even though I'm in sciences, I think it's really important to try and learn all kinds of different things in university. I think more science students need to try and look at more arts courses where they can gain a lot of knowledge from. I think it's the same thing for arts. I think more art students need to take a little more science courses. I mean, a lot of people take the basics. Like if you're a science student, you're going to take like philosophy 101 because you heard it's easy. If you're arts, you're going to take earth and ocean science because you heard it's easy. But I think like maybe like it's time to try and normalize like trying to do courses you're interested in, and that might be a little bit harder and honestly might bring your GPA down, but it might be more beneficial in the end.
I so agree. I definitely think especially like university, there really isn't any course that's like extremely easy. Like every course you have to work for the grade, so you might as well do something you're interested in.
Exactly.
And learn something that is important to your own values, I think.
I couldn't say better than that. I mean, everyone always goes for whatever the GPA booster is, but then are you going to take any of the information you learned, or are you just going to take the grade away from it?
Exactly.
And if so, then what's the point paying for that course? Because that's your own money going into that course, and you're paying for just a grade.
Yeah, and like it's always good to challenge yourself, try new things, I think. Keeping that open-minded mindset.
Yeah, exactly. 100% agree with you. Well, Donald, this has been a really fun and fascinating conversation. I really appreciated your insight on like, especially like the east side.
Good fun.
There we go. But I appreciate it. And I definitely learned a lot more, especially about safe injection sites. And I hope other people listening learned a lot more as well. But I mean, I always give people the opportunity, if you want to share any social media, you can share Instagram. I don't think you have a TikTok. You can share your Strava account.
I'm okay.
I
just I just hope someone learned something today, and like maybe they'll go home and like Google like what Insight is, or find out more and learn more, and maybe like sign some petitions and like decide to make a change for Vancouver.
I'll be sure to link Insight in the descriptions for this podcast.
Awesome.
I don't know if I can put a link in like a Spotify podcast, but I know I can do it for YouTube. So awesome. I'll be sure to do that. But otherwise, Donald, thanks for coming by, both in person and on Zoom.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. Until next time, mate.
See ya.